You are listening to Unified Through Chronic and Mental Illness with your hosts, Angie Roberts and Kimberly Murphy. Please be advised that some of the topics of this podcast can be triggering and sensitive in nature.
Emotional maturity and age should go hand in hand. However, it does not. We've all met people that have proven they are emotionally stunted, underdeveloped adults.
Hey Spoonies, mental health warriors, our supporters and friends. Welcome to the premiere of season 5 of Unified. We're so excited to be here. I'm Kimberly Murphy here with Angie Roberts.
Hey y'all.
And our first episode of season 5, we're going to be talking about emotional aging. Now, we all know there's people out there who are like 14, going on 30, and then there's people who are 42 going on 16. So chronological age doesn't necessarily go with emotional aging. Right. So we're going to be talking about that today. What do you got for us, Angie?
Well, you said chronicle age. When I was reading, they said that's just how many times you've been around the sun. Mm-hmm. That doesn't matter. That doesn't tell your emotional maturity. So emotional age, it's a measure of emotional maturity by comparison with the average emotional development. So are you the same age emotionally as you are supposed to be through your emotional development?
That reminds me of like when you bring your kids to the pediatrician and they're kind of saying, okay, where are you on the graph? Are you kind of in the average?
Right.
You know what I mean? When they check out their physical development, are you kind of in that range where you're supposed to be?
Right. Right. And the opposite of that, of course, is emotional maturity.
How old you are.
Yeah. Being honest with your feelings and building trust around you because you have no agenda. You don't have an agenda for your friends or anything like that. You just, that's emotional maturity.
Okay. So, like with the emotional maturity, you were just talking about being honest with your feelings. Mm-hmm. That actually resonates with me because I've had friends before that it seems like a lot of people have an agenda. It's a matter of whether or not you catch them in it. But some people are so obvious, like, it's hard to trust people when you know that they're trying to get something from you. Mm-hmm. Like if somebody's trying to get close to you because, they want to maybe be in a circle of people that maybe they have clout with somebody they want to be close to, or maybe they have some sort of business opportunity because somebody's working in a certain place. So they're trying to get close to you with their own agenda. It has nothing to do with feelings and building trust because they just want to know who you are. So there's no honesty in that relationship.
Right.
And if you're emotionally mature, you're not going to do that.
No,
you're not at all. You're not going to play games like that. I mean, men do it too. And women do it in like relationships. Right. Yeah.
It's
like men who take you out to dinner and they're like telling you how wonderful you are just to because they're hoping that they can have an intimate relationship with you. They don't really want an emotional relationship with you because they're not emotionally mature enough to actually be in that type of relationship.
That's so true. And it does go for both men and women.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah. So there's a few things that can result in emotional immaturity. So I thought this was interesting. Some insecure attachments during early life experiences. So like just being insecure, like with your parents, the attachment, like, is this an okay attachment or not in your early life can result in, for you to be immature. Trauma, untreated addiction or mental health problems, lack of deeper retrospection or work on oneself, which is true.
Yeah.
And I thought this was interesting. It said that it can manifest as self-centeredness, narcissism, or poor management of conflict.
Well, that makes total sense to me.
Right.
I was just thinking about the hovering parents. I wonder if, like the helicopter moms.
Like me? Is that what you're talking about?
Well, I was too, but
there's a certain extent.
Yeah, but like the helicopter moms, sometimes these kids have trouble kind of emotionally maturing because we're kind of overdoing for them. So they kind of emotionally mature later in life. Not to say that it's a horrible thing because they're not necessarily being traumatized, but it's a good example. But if you're being raised by someone with mental health issues that are not being treated, or someone with addiction issues, or someone with trauma like my mother, that can become a horrible, horrible issue because she lacks the introspection to work on herself. And then that was passed down to me. So you don't learn those how to manage conflict if you're raised by someone who also doesn't know how to manage conflict and they're very self-centered. And if you're, like you said, like we've said in past podcasts, if you have trauma at a young age, sometimes that does end up as narcissism or BPD. So suddenly you're in this situation where it's really hard for you to look outside yourself in the first place if it's untreated. BPD people, don't get mad at me. I'm just saying if it's untreated, that can be a real bad situation. So it takes a lot of work. Yeah, it takes a lot of work.
We're never talking about anybody that is trying to get themselves mentally well.
Right. Because we know a lot of people who have done very well when they do have the deeper introspection and they do the work. Anybody who does that can do extremely well. But you're right. If they don't have the introspection to work on themselves, it can be a disaster, and they will not mature until they do.
No, you have to work on yourself.
And it has to be proactive. You have to be actively working on it. I think a lot of people think passively they're just going to mature.
Right.
Don't you think?
Well, a lot of people think you just mature as you get older, and that's how it works, but it's not how it works.
No.
No, you got to spend some time on yourself. I found that out.
Yeah, especially if there's any kind of trauma, like you said, trauma, addiction, there's so many things that hold you back. So not everyone is at the same starting line. Not all of us are starting at the same place. So we have to keep that in mind as well.
Right. There's a few things that I've heard as I was reading through an article. So I wanted to see if you've heard any of these. These are things emotionally immature people say. I'm not so good at spending time on my own.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think that's a red flag because those people can become codependent on you, and you really don't want that.
It's also like
really hard, and it means they're just not mature enough to be on their own.
It's also a red flag that says they don't necessarily know how to love. They have attachment style disorder. So it's kind of a way for them to think outside of themselves. If you can't spend quality time with yourself, that's definitely a red flag. What are you trying to avoid?
Yeah. And it's nothing. It's not condemning. We're not condemning. It's like, sometimes we want to make you think.
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people, and there was a time that I was this way too. I had to always be around my friends. I felt better about myself when I was with people. I think I got my validation a lot from other people, so that made me feel good.
Right.
So that's part of it, I think. And then that love versus attachment, I got confused a lot, which that's kind of a new thing. That's something new I've realized. So, we're constantly learning. So I think that's part of it. Yeah.
And then I've heard, I don't really remember much of my childhood. Have you heard that one? Not as much, but
I have with like people who have had severe trauma.
Right. And which it means that they have the inability to remember their childhood, which means they haven't even started to yet process what is going through their mind or what happened to them as a child. So that's a huge red flag, again, to becoming someone's friend.
Or any type of
because
relationship.
or
Yeah.
any type of relationship, because
Excuse me.
they need to process what they're going through before
Yeah.
they can move on to adulthood situations.
Right, because that's going to obviously stunt their emotional maturity if they're stuck in that
Yeah.
situation. And that's extremely sad because it's not their fault.
It's not, yeah. But
But
it's hard to understand sometimes as somebody else looking in, but
and them too, because like I don't think necessarily, I think a lot of people who have been through sexual abuse or physical abuse as a child, it's not something they want to think about. It's not something they want to relive. So therapy often seems like something, why would they want to do that? Why would they want to go through that again in their minds? What could they possibly learn? So a
right.
lot of them avoid it, and I understand that. But there is benefits to therapy. There are ways that they're going to get through that feeling, and they're going to see it in a different way. They're going to see it from their adult mind rather than their children's mind,
Right.
their child mind. And that's the goal, so that they can get past it.
I agree with that.
Yeah. So
I agree to definitely, if you can't remember much of your childhood, please get a therapist, because you're just not processing what happened to you, and it's
there could be some
time to move
repressed stuff
on.
there. Yeah. Yeah.
Time to get with it and move on.
Right.
Okay, so another one they said was, I never really thought of it that way. And I never really thought of it, that question.
Right. I never really thought of it that way.
It means they're like emotionally immature, but I don't really understand that, because I've said I never really thought of it that way when I've been talking to you, and it's just,
I know,
I don't
because
know.
it doesn't that mean you have an open mind? I don't know. Sometimes
I
that's good.
I guess maybe sometimes it's not so good. I
Well,
guess I would say people that when you say new ideas, every time you say a new idea, they're like, oh, yeah, I never thought of it that way. And then they believe your idea,
yeah, they have a
where
hard
I'm coming
time.
from. Yeah. Yeah.
They have a hard time maybe contributing their own ideas or their own knowledge to the conversation.
Right. They
Um,
even have hard times having, yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
like I knew this guy and we had conversations a lot. He was like that a lot. He had a really religious family, so we would talk about the Bible a lot.
Mm,
And he would be like really, really down about it. He would be very like, I don't want to talk about this. But then he would ask me questions and he'd be like, I never really thought of it that way. He'd say that a lot. Um, and a lot of people do. That's a very intense topic, but
right.
then I'd notice it in other topics as well that weren't so intense. And I began to notice that he really didn't contribute a lot. And I just kind of thought he wasn't very smart, is kind of how I looked at it.
Right. Well, it does seem that way.
But that, looking back on it, I can see that he really was emotionally immature. He really was not very mature.
Right.
Yeah. So maybe that's what this is talking about. People that are just easy to influence.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another one, everything is good, all good, everything is fine.
Mm.
Um, I know that we've all said it sometimes when we just don't want to talk about it, but some people have no way to process other emotions. They don't know what
Yeah.
not they may not even know what emotion they're feeling if they're feeling a lot of emotions. Um,
It's
but
like toxic positivity.
right,
Okay. So
exactly.
like people I've been accused of this before because I tend to preach, hey, let's be positive. Let's try to look at the bright side.
Right.
But I also feel like you do have to process your negative feelings.
I think that they might be using a lot of distraction, just distraction to process your emotions, like, oh
Mm-hmm.
no, I don't feel that way, or I feel this way. Let me just do this over here. And it might not even be a good thing that they go and do, but they try to keep their emotions high.
Yeah. It could be substance abuse users. It could be gambling. It
Yeah.
could be, yeah.
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 So
Yeah. People who avoid,
processing their
not having
emotions.
a way to process emotions other than being good. See, I can't even imagine that, but I mean,
I know. This is why therapists are so good, so
I
that
know.
we can process these things. And
hmm I know people like that though. They're always happy. They're always like, "Oh yeah, I'm good. Everything's great." And if something negative comes up, they're like, they don't want to hear it. They don't
right,
want to
or they
hear
just
it.
fall apart, and you're like, "Whoa."
Yeah, they're like, no, everything's good. I don't like it's fine. Everything's fine. I don't want to hear that. Like they really are kind of like they try to, if they have a bubble around them, they avoid anything that's not going to sit well with them. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I do know people like that. And they don't handle anything that's disruptive very well. So,
No.
yeah.
Mm-mm. No, not at all. And
These are
then
the people, these are the people that will blow up when you least expect it.
yes, yeah,
Yeah.
it is. It
hmm
really is.
Yep.
And then we have the people that says, "Oh, that's just psychobabble. It's overcomplicated nonsense. You think too much.
Pull
Um,
yourself together.
pull yourself together." Um,
I hate
you know,
that.
yeah, it's just
If
there's
you
just
just get some more sun and get some exercise, you wouldn't be depressed.
they say it's a way of blocking out something they just can't handle. Uh, which is odd, but I guess well, not odd, but they just can't handle reality
Mhm.
usually. So,
It is emotionally immature, though, to not believe that there's help for people who are having emotional issues.
right.
It's very emotionally immature to believe in physical illness, but not believe that, there could be a mental illness. It's so, I mean, especially when there's so much science to back it.
Right.
Yeah, so, and we know a lot of people that are out there that are like that. It's just too hard for them to accept. So if you acknowledge it, now you have to do something about it. So that's hard for some people.
It is. Once you know better, you got to do better.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
and that's, yeah.
Yeah, that's
I
the
think
hard
some people
part.
don't want to acknowledge that it is better. So then they don't have to do better.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot of the problem for some people is once you acknowledge it, now you're expected, or they feel they have an expectation on themselves to actually have to do something about it. And they're not really sure what that is, and that's kind of scary. But growth is scary.
Growth
Growth is
is,
not growth is not supposed to be comfortable, guys. Like it's uncomfortable because you haven't done it yet. If you've done it before, then it's not growth.
yeah. Stepping out of your bubble is really hard. Change
Mhm.
is hard for a lot of people.
Yeah,
Um, but it's just how you look at it and how you go about it, your
that's
maturity
true.
about it or not
How you look at
mature
it
about
really
it,
matters.
right?
Yeah, that's true.
So I found it interesting there are some characteristics actually that you can look at for emotionally immature people. The first one that they talked about was lack of empathy. They just can't process how somebody else is feeling or talk to them about it, or the people that are like, "Oh, I feel so bad and I'm sick and blah blah blah," and you're like, "Oh yeah, I don't feel well too," and they're like, "But I'm so sick," and you're like, "Okay." They have no empathy
I'm
for what
laughing
you're
because I
saying.
know a lot of people like this.
Right. We do know
Well,
people
I
like
don't know, maybe not a lot, but I know like people are coming to mind. Yeah,
right.
and they make it about them very quickly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not
I think
fair,
because
but
I think because they're uncomfortable, they don't know what to say. So
yeah, and because they just lack the empathy. I mean, if you lack empathy, then
it's kind of
you
like
don't,
like some 4 and 5 year olds, they're just learning real empathy.
right. Yeah,
They're just starting to learn that. For some reason, some people never really, they're good at sympathy. They're kind of good at compassion, but real empathy, just they
right.
never seem to get there.
I agree with
Yeah.
that. It's
Yeah.
not an easy thing to get to either.
Right.
Let's see. Overreacting to life circumstances. So I think we all know people like this.
Yes.
They have a tendency to move towards conflict and drama instead of away from it. And they're moved by emotion. They're very impulsive people. So,
well, okay. So I got to say that this was me probably 10 years ago.
right?
I'm serious. Yeah, because I would always say, why does drama follow me around? Why am I a drama magnet?
Right.
Guys, you're not a drama magnet. You're creating your own drama, and you're putting yourself in situations that are dramatic. You have the power to not be involved. That's the bottom line.
And if someone is toxic and causing too much drama, cut them off.
Yeah, you can cut them off. And, sometimes you can be impulsive with your emotions and think that you're doing good because maybe you're sticking up for your friend when someone's being dramatic,
Right.
or whatever. But really, the best thing to do is for everyone just to cut that person off. If you're involved with that person, you're creating drama. You're just as much to blame for that drama as the dramatic person is. If like you're saying that person's dramatic and I'm not because I'm trying to cut them off or whatever. If you're involved in that drama, you're just as dramatic as they are.
So
it's just
true.
The way you're adding to the drama. There can't be a dramatic moment if there isn't two people.
Exactly.
Right. So it took me a while to figure that out.
And they don't take responsibility and they like to blame others. So no matter what happens, it's not their fault. Mm-hmm. Somebody else made them do it, or this made them do it, or they just don't own up to what they do. And just naturally blame someone else right after something happens.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that because I've been emotionally immature. It wasn't that long ago, and had to get myself together. So I've really worked hard on it. So I know that this can happen. I understand, but you have to learn to take the blame not take the blame. Take what's your fault.
Take the blame for yourself.
Yeah. Take the blame for yourself and not what somebody else did. Let them take their blame, but you did something. So what happened?
Mm-hmm. And it's really hard for some people to do. Right. But I'm telling you, like, once that switch turns on, everything changes. Like the way you look at things really changes, and it changes a lot.
Honestly, it's a good thing because I feel more positive now than
so do I. Yeah,
much more positive.
Yeah. So, I mean, in therapy is what I needed.
Right. I did too.
So really, please, like if you're struggling with any of this, go to therapy. You will be surprised how much they can help you with your relationships with other people.
Oh, definitely.
Honestly. Yeah. And how to get out of those toxic relationships.
And if you're emotionally immature, they'll teach you how to not be emotionally immature.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Teach you how to, excuse me, teach you how to deal with your feelings
and respect yourself enough to have healthy relationships with other people.
Yeah definitely.
Mm-hmm.
These kind of people, they need immediate gratification too. They fail to plan ahead. They don't do any of that. I mean, I don't do that sometimes, but anyway. But they have an inability to resist temptation.
This is my son. It's
your son.
Hi, Zach. No, sorry. He knows it though. He would sit here and tell you. Yeah, it's hard for him to wait for anything, and I don't know why. It makes him feel good to get what he wanted. He fixates on something and has to have it right away. I don't know why. I don't think he knows why.
But they have self-centered needs.
Right. Yes. It's like, I have to have that thing, I have to have that thing. I have to have that perfect best thing. And I have to have it before other people do. Because it gives him some sort of satisfaction. And it is a self-centered need.
Yeah, because it can be even like gambling or drinking or drug addiction or any kind of addiction that you have to anything.
Shopping, having the best stuff.
Yeah.
And, giving something to themselves instead of like maybe doing something good for other people. They would never think to do that.
Right. Right.
Right. Yep. Yeah. That's hard. Not
Um,
only immature people are going to do that. So,
right.
yeah.
And I hate it. I hate it when people get hostile. And it is also one of the characteristics.
This is the
Hostility.
worst one for me. Not that
Yeah,
I do it, but for me to
right.
be around.
Right. They attack others that don't agree with them. They call them names like dumb, stupid, foolish. They believe the other person is trying to perform some sort of agenda. So they think, I want to say
Yeah.
the world is against them, but it's kind of like that. That
Yeah.
everybody has an agenda and it's all set against them.
Right.
So, and there's very, very, very low trust in these
Yeah. In
types of,
that moment, it is. And like,
yeah,
they do attack others that don't agree with them. And I think that's the worst part because they can't be around people. It's hard for them to have differing opinions and still respect you.
right,
And it could stem from something as simple as, how they were treated when they felt powerless, maybe as a child or
right.
when in a relationship. Um, so yeah, it's hard to be around. It really is.
If you want to see how hostile people get about others not liking their opinions, just go on Facebook to a major any kind of
Politics,
major
religion.
thing and read the comments.
Yeah, go into like one of these major
People get
go
mean.
go into one of those hot topics and you'll find out.
Ooh-wee. Yes.
Uh-huh. Yep, definitely.
Also, right. Also, they're deceptive a lot. They can be pathological liars and they lie to impress others. So I have something about this, okay?
Okay. Oh boy.
No, I was all of 14, so I
Well,
was
you're
emotionally
laughing, so this is
immature.
gonna be good.
My friend Dennis and I, shout out to Dennis if he's listening. He knows who he is. we
Hi,
went to
Dennis.
we went to band camp, right? And I only went
Oh
to band
boy.
camp 1 year. Well, there was a pool hall, and I don't know what made us start doing this, but we started talking in these accents.
Oh my gosh.
And we made up all these stories that we had done, and all these people are believing us. We thought it was funny, though. It was actually just comical to
I
us.
am laughing so hard because me and my bestie back when I was like the same age, we did the same thing. I am not kidding you. I'm not kidding you.
Oh, it's so funny.
We had these boys convinced that she was Asian and she had blonde hair and blue eyes. And
Oh my gosh.
I mean, yeah, we used to do that too. I don't know why we did it. It was just fun.
Now, if you're doing it when you're 40,
Yeah,
come
that's
on,
not
y'all.
good.
Let's
Yeah,
not do
it's time to
that.
go. But isn't that funny that we both did that? I don't know
That is
why.
funny.
That is
Funny
funny.
experience.
I can't believe we both did that. Anyway, but yeah, a lot of people will lie to impress others, or they'll suppress the truth. That's
Mhm,
another,
mhm.
I know a lot of people that suppress the truth. And then when it comes out, you're just like, oh my goodness, who have I known this whole time?
Yeah, it's kind of like lying, suppressing the truth,
It is lying.
especially if it's
Admit
a
by
big deal.
admission. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Hmm. Like, you've been in prison for 10 years? What?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I would
Hmm.
probably freak out.
Right. Right.
They have to, they have difficulty setting boundaries. Now, I went because I also have difficulty setting boundaries. Um,
I
they
agree with
cannot,
this, though. I totally agree with this, having
right,
just learned this myself.
right. They cannot limit or end bad relationships. I cannot
Yep.
leave relationships due to the dependency.
Hmm.
Um, I used to be so much like this. Like
Hmm.
I used to be the totally non-setting boundary person. So I was only happy if my friends were happy. I was only happy if, like everything was perfect.
So I have something to say about this because I had a really hard time ending a friendship of 11 years. I've talked about this before, and we hung out a lot last year. And I kept saying 11 years, time, loyalty, da 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 da, whatever. I finally learned about boundaries and why they're so important. And I kind of learned something. So a lot of people said how great of a person I am because I see the good in everyone. But here's the thing. All right.
Here's the thing.
Here's the thing. Seeing the good in everyone is not necessarily a good thing at all. You got to see the truth in everyone.
Yes.
Okay. So seeing the good in everyone can harm you in a very bad way. You got to see the truth in everyone. And that is one way of setting boundaries for yourself.
I absolutely agree with you.
So learning that alone, I think, is going to help me immensely in my future.
Me too. I'm working on that with my therapist right now.
Yeah, so am I.
Certain boundaries for certain people and how it's really hard for me. It's really hard for me when I know somebody needs help, but I know they're also, what's the word I'm looking for? Not really taking advantage of me, just maybe taking advantage of
your time,
or my time or my sympathy for people or that kind of thing, like, or my empathy.
Yeah, because there's a lot of people that they say they want help, but they're really not ready to do anything about their own situations. They just want sympathy, like you said.
Angie, what do I do? Okay, here's what you do. And then they're like, Angie, what do I do? Well, I told you last time.
Here we are in year 2 now. What do I do? You're still saying the same thing. Right.
Here we are.
Yeah.
Right.
And it does drain you. So, but I remember not being able to leave relationships. I was very dependent on relationships when I was younger.
It's hard.
Yeah. So, but again, that definitely shows emotional immaturity, and I was kind of a shallow person. So I was kind of attached to the people I was in relationships with because I kind of feel like I would kind of sort of made whatever was important to them became important to me.
Right.
So therefore, if I left, what was I going to have? You know? So that was
I felt the same way. Yeah.
I had to develop myself.
Right. And when you're like that, there's no room for growth.
Right.
When you're emotionally immature, there's no room for growth. Because of what they said earlier, you're still stuck back when you were a childhood. You have not back in your childhood or whatever happened to you. Right.
Yeah.
You're stuck and you haven't processed that yet. Therefore, you don't have room for growth because you don't have any personal development, unfortunately. And really, I think the first way to fix this is to go to therapy because they teach you how to create healthy boundaries.
Definitely. Yeah.
They make you more self-aware. So you have awareness of your own comfort level. You identify which situations make you feel hurt, uneasy, or angry, and you try to avoid those situations, right?
Right.
Like when something when something starts happening and you start feeling that feeling, you can get up and walk away. Therefore, you don't have the whole heightened feeling.
Right.
And communicating with friends or significant others is really a good way to fix having emotional immaturity, because when you start communicating, it starts building
trust, really.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, a lot of this stuff too is like it alleviates a lot of the pressure that you've been feeling so that you're able to develop in all those other ways that we talked about before. If you're able to create boundaries and become more self-aware and communicate with people, now you have this space that you need to develop with your therapist, yourself, to work on yourself.
And when you're communicating, mention there are certain things that you won't tolerate. I have done this before. I will not tolerate somebody cussing at me on the phone. I will hang up on you.
Right.
I don't have to listen to you cuss at me. Okay, so that's one thing. That's off the top of my head. Or being shouted at.
Right.
Kimberly doesn't like being shouted at.
Nope.
She doesn't like that is one of hers.
Exactly. Yeah.
Or lied to. I don't like being lied to. That triggers me also.
Mm-hmm.
I've been lied to too many times in my life about major things. And yeah. So.
And that's a part of creating healthy boundaries. You gotta know yourself. And I really feel like if you're stunted in your growth, you kind of need someone to guide you at that point.
You do, but
yeah,
you have to know that you're stunted in your growth.
That's where the introspection comes in. Yeah. Because hopefully you listen to this podcast, because if you identify with a couple of these, maybe it's worth talking to a therapist to see where you're at. Maybe you're not as stunted as you think you are, but it might be worth talking to somebody if some of these things resonate with you and you're like, maybe I'm not as mature as I thought I was. Maybe I need to talk to somebody and see if there's some things I can do to make myself more emotionally mature so that I can, get those boundaries in place. I think a lot of us have problems with boundaries in general.
I think so too. Mm-hmm. And with the boundaries, I think a lot of people have a hard time communicating, which is a lot to do with boundaries.
Right. And self-respect. It's hard to, if you don't have any self-respect, it's going to be difficult to communicate your needs. So.
Right. And you need to follow through on what you say. No exceptions. If you tell them, I will not tolerate this, you don't tolerate it. Don't be like, okay.
And that's and that's a whole nother thing, because then
Kimberly.
I know. That's another therapy session for me. That'll be the next thing I'll be working on. What do I do? What do I do now? I said I wouldn't tolerate it. So what do I do now? How do I follow through? Right. But yeah,
now what?
It's a work in progress. It's a work in progress, and growing up is a work in progress. So I'm really glad we did this podcast, because we all have, it's hard for all of us. We're all in different places. Mm-hmm. And this is just proof of that. And hopefully this will give you guys something to think about. Maybe maybe your kids, maybe yourself, maybe a friend of yours, you can let them listen to this. Hopefully it helps somebody.
Yes.
Yeah, I hope so.
A little. Okay, so now that we're through with that. I'm so professional here. Now that we're through with that. Now that we're through that part. So they have these emotional age tests you can take online.
Oh, right. I almost forgot about this. This is right. Okay. So we took them, you guys.
We took them. I got 75. I'm 75 years old emotionally.
I got 35. And I took it twice, and I got 35.
Yeah, I took mine twice. I'm anywhere from 55 to 75, something like that.
Y'all probably already knew that if you've listened to our podcast. I really wasn't surprised. But do you know offhand where we took those by chance, Angie?
No, I'll have to put it up on the website.
Okay, we'll put it up on the website in case you guys are curious and want to take it yourselves. Let us know on our Facebook page what you got. That would be fun. I'd love to hear what our listeners got. I know some of our friends have taken it already, and we've been having fun listening to what they had to say about their ages and what they got. I'm happy to say that 35 is a lifelong learner, and I do feel like I've kind of been on that path. I do hang out with old souls like Angie, so I do believe she's an old soul. So
I'm 75. I mean 75
I'm in good company.
Right. There you go.
Okay, so what is the mantra for this week?
Okay. Maturity doesn't always come with age. In fact, it's deeper than age. It's about the way you see and understand things, the way you consider things, the way you communicate, the way you react, the things you value, the things you entertain, the way you represent yourself and others as an adult. Everyone grows old, but not everyone is growing up.
That is for sure.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That's a pretty deep thing.
It is.
Talking about how you understand things and consider things and the way you communicate. It's so true, though.
Yeah. It is.
It just works out better when you get yourself where you need to be. Like when I went into DBT therapy, I was definitely not where I needed to be. I was very emotionally immature, and the way they taught you to be emotionally mature, because they teach you to set boundaries in DBT. They teach you, and CBT does also. But
yeah, my therapist said that CBT is actually a subset of DBT.
Yes.
And Angie, you'll be happy to know that our editor it has been doing DBT.
Yay.
I know. I was surprised to hear that. I actually did not know that. I should have known that. But I was told that this week. So I was quite happy to find that out. So DBT is becoming much more popular than it used to be. Mm-hmm.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. DBT has saved my life many times, as I've told people many times. But yeah, get that therapist and work it out. Get some boundaries in your life, learn to communicate, follow through with what you say, and things will be different in your life. I promise you. You'll have a more positive life.
Yeah, there's no greater investment than yourselves, guys. No greater investment. We hope that you enjoyed this week's episode. And if you got something out of it, please like, share, follow, or subscribe. We are begging you guys to give us more love this season. We're hoping to give you guys some content that you really enjoy. All of our social media information will be announced in just a moment. Please join us next week for a brand new episode. You don't want to miss it. Until then, thank you for listening. And please remember that we are stronger together.
Mask up. Peace out, y'all.
Unified through chronic and mental illness can be found at anchor.fm/unified. There you can find all social media links as well as other ways to listen.